Welcome to the first episode of Hollywood Beatdown. I'm basically linking this show in with the show I did before called Right in the Childhood that went on for one episode. Every fortnight I'll do Hollywood Beatdown, and every other fortnight I'll do Right in the Childhood, sort of a segment where I review movies or TV shows that I grew up with, whether they're bad ones or good ones. Hollywood Beatdown, I just review bad films, it's as easy as that. So this week we're gonna do a Right in the Childhood segment. So this week we're gonna look at a film that when I saw as a kid in the cinema filled me with such anger and disappointment. I knew one day I would have to just let it all out and tell everyone what I thought of it. So what is it? Well, it's probably Pixar's worst film, Cars. Imagine you me at 9 years old when the film first came out. You'd seen the other Pixar movies and watched them constantly. The first Toy Story is actually your favourite film. You're excited for Pixar's newest release, Cars. You go to the cinema all full of excitement and anticipation, and then the film starts and ends. I didn't know what I thought the film was like. Did I hate it? Did I like it? I just didn't know. And I finally got the chance to watch the film when it was shown on Disney Cinemagic back in the day when that was still around. The second viewing made me realise that I really hated it. The premise is stupid, the characters are annoying and unlikable. Everything about Cars is something that Pixar just didn't do. Pixar made films that really spoke to your heart, films that were sweet, films that were funny and had some of the best animation at the time and even still today. The animation of Cars, of course, is really good. That was a plus. The scenes where Lightning McQueen and Sally are driving along Route 66 just look beautiful. It's just the rest of the film that really bugged the shit out of me. I know it's just a silly cartoons, and cartoons don't always have to make sense, but it makes so little sense that it just pisses me off. Sure, the other Pixar films have stuff that just couldn't happen in real life. Monsters don't exist, fish don't talk, toys don't talk and move around on their own, and there's certainly no such thing as superheroes. But the problem is that these things live in worlds where everything is adapted around them. In Toy Story they live in the real world, they don't do anything a normal human couldn't do. Finding Nemo in a way could happen if fish could talk and if they were smart. The Incredibles, of course, is also completely plausible if there were such things as superheroes. But talking cars that somehow live in a world full of cars, where they have cities and everything that were somehow built by cars, you know, the object that not only can only move when a human has touched it, but also the object that has no arms or legs. So let's dive into Cars and see if it's as bad as I remember it being as a kid. So we start off the film with an interesting style opening. Well, that's until he starts talking about breakfast.
Breakfast? Maybe I should have had breakfast. Well, brekkie could be good for me. No, stay focused. Speed.
Yeah, that just isn't funny. So of course the film starts off with a big race. But there's one problem I have. The first problem that pretty much makes the whole film illogical. How the fuck do they have all these massive structures, all the stadiums and everything? They don't have arms or legs. They can't build any of that. The only thing the only theory I have is that it's set in a post-apocalyptic world where all the humans have died, and over the years the cars have basically adapted to the ruins that aren't really ruins. They're all somehow been left intact, but yeah, they've all been living there. They've basically started to speak to each other. They can drive on their own. I mean, that kind of could work, but they never even touch upon it. They just say, yeah, this world's full of cars, and expect you to go along with it. I mean, it's just impossible. It could never happen, and yeah. I know I said earlier that even things like Monsters Inc. couldn't happen, but they kind of make sense. I mean, there's nothing that the monsters couldn't have done. All this, like, monsters, all their buildings and everything, they can make because they have arms, they have legs, unlike cars. I mean, what are they gonna do? Like, pick up a fucking hammer with their wheels? We then see Lightning McQueen, who is the new big race car who started from the bottom and is now at the top, which is something the rapper Drake thinks happened to him, but really he just stayed at the bottom. So the opening of the film may actually be the only part I like. Of course I hate how Lightning McQueen thinks he's all that. He just pisses me off. Maybe I'm just sick of these underdog stories. Of course you may be thinking it isn't an underdog story, but I think it's more of what would happen halfway through the underdog story when he's become more well known. The music is really good and fits the scene well. I kind of like the narrations by the commentators as well, even if none of it makes any sense. Now in the big race, the big hotshot racer Chick Hicks decides to create a big crash behind him so he can win. Lightning McQueen, of course, drives through the crash and jumps on a car. Let's pause. You know when Lightning just jumped on that other car, wouldn't that have basically really hurt the other car? Because he's basically jumping on people. You just don't jump on someone, Lightning. You're not Mario, you can't do that. Also, how does he have a tongue? That basically takes my theory and just flushes it right down the toilet. I mean, I tried to make sense of it, but they're basically saying, no, you can't make sense of it. Just, it ruins the film when none of it makes sense. I mean, I'm fine with some films that I don't understand. Donnie Darko is one of my favourite films of all time, and I didn't understand a single bit of it. But Cars is a film that I cannot live with the fact it makes no sense, because it just goes way too overboard. It doesn't try and make you like the characters at all. It doesn't really give you much things that can make you see past the fact that it makes no sense. It just, yeah, it makes no sense. Everything in this film is impossible, unless this is an alternative universe. But still, that doesn't explain how they have the stadium or how they constantly camera flashes coming from the audience. I'm pretty sure that Cars cannot hold cameras. So then, Lightning McQueen refuses to take a pit stop. Also, he apparently fired his entire crew. I'm pretty sure that the racing regulators wouldn't let him fire his crew. Are they just gonna let him go out there, pop his tyres and create a massive crash? And then it turns out he didn't fire his crew, even though the commentators just said he did. And he refused to change his tyres because the film's trying to make him look like a big eccentric arsehole completely full of himself. That way later on in the film, when he changes, you can fall in love with him and see that he's now a nice person, when really I just think he's a douchebag the whole film from start to end. Unsurprisingly, of course, he blows his tyre. Then in come two other drivers, and they all cross the finish line at the same time. Lightning McQueen only just making it because his illogical tongue touches the finish line. Then his crew gets pissed off with his dickish statements where he's being himself, the huge dick he is. After being given advice by Mr. the King, he stops paying attention to what he's saying because, you know, when one of the biggest races in the world comes along and gives you advice on how to become a bigger race car, you're gonna ignore him, aren't you? I mean, imagine if you were a football player and Pele came up to you and started giving you advice on how to become the best football player in the world. Yeah, you'd be ignoring him, wouldn't you? So Lightning McQueen starts to image what it would be like if he was sponsored by Dynaco. what does saving the world from an alien invasion have anything to do with you becoming a big race car? I mean, it's like they just added that scene in just so they could add it in the video game. And they didn't even add it in the video game, so that just makes me think, what's the point? So then we're told that the big tiebreaker race will be held by the 3 leaders in California the next week. Because it doesn't make sense just to do it right then in the stadium where they already are. Then we see how Lightning hates his sponsor and doesn't want to go in their tent. But he's accidentally spotted trying to walk through.
Damn, get your rear end in here, kid.
Lightning McQueen, you are wicked!
Yeah, you were fucking McQueen.
Give me a little room, guys.
You're my hero, Mr. McQueen.
Yes, I know. Fred, thank you.
He knows my name. He knows my name.
Looking good, Freddy.
Thanks to you, Lightning, we had a better year.
Oh, I mean, we might even clear enough to buy you some headlights.
Are you saying he doesn't have headlights?
That's what I'm telling you. It's just stickers. Well, you know, race cars don't need headlights because the track is always lit.
Yeah, well, so's my brother, but he still needs headlights.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lightning McQueen!
Okay, I'll give the film credit for using that Freebird joke. So Lightning gets into his trailer, which goes off on its way to California. Then Lightning gets a call from his agent.
Listen, they're giving you 20 tickets for the tiebreaker thing in Cali. I'll pass them on to your friends. You shoot me the names. You let Hard rock it for you, alright, baby?
Right, friends. Yes, there's,
So Lightning has no friends. I wonder why. Maybe it's because he is an absolute dick who thinks he's the best car in the world. So here's a news flash. If you want people to like you, just be yourself. Don't try and say you're the best person in the world. Don't try and love yourself so much that no one else can. If you just be yourself and don't make yourself look like a god on wheels, then maybe you would have 20 friends to give tickets. So Lightning's trailer is told that he has to drive through the night instead of stopping for the cars to sleep. Because you know, cars need to sleep. Yeah. And then along come these gangster cars sporting tons of colours and modifications. They decide to knock Lightning's sleepy trailer off the road. Then after stuff gets really bumpy, Lightning gets knocked out of the back of the trailer, making him get separated. Of course, he starts trying to drive after the trailer on the interstate. He wakes up a police car who keeps backfiring, making Lightning think he's being shot at. Lightning ends up driving into the town of Radiator Springs, where he accidentally destroys the road and causes a bunch of havoc. Here in Radiator Springs, the people who live here are a hippie who's played by George fucking Carlin,
Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits, fart, turd, and twat.
a veteran, a possible stoner, a stereotypical black woman, a stupid old woman, and a bunch of other people who you pretty much don't care about. Not that you care about any of the other characters at all. Lightning's trailer arrives without Lightning and he is announced as missing. There are a couple of stupid jokes like Jay Leno car named Jay Limo. That's not fun. And an Arnold Schwarzenegger car.
Lightning McQueen must be found at all costs.
That is probably the worst Arnold Schwarzenegger impression I've ever heard. So Lightning's in the scrapyard where he meets Mater, who is apparently so popular he was given his own show and short film. In all honesty, I hate him more than Lightning McQueen, but he's probably the character I hate the most out of this film. I don't know why everyone loves him so much. He's annoying, he isn't really that funny at all, and he's just all around annoying. I mean, I like the other characters that live in Radiator Springs, kind of. I just hate the two main characters of the whole film. So Lightning's taken to car court where his lawyer is Mater. And in comes the head of the town, Doc Hudson, who comes in and tells Lightning to go. But in comes Sally, who comes in and argues with Doc and tells him to make Lightning fix the road, because if she didn't, the film would be very short. Eventually he allows it to happen. So of course Lightning starts fixing the road, but he does a terrible job and is made to redo it. Then Doc says that him and Lightning should have a race. If Lightning wins, he goes free, but if Doc wins, then Lightning has to redo the road. Lightning speeds off and Doc just stays there and does nothing. Lightning keeps speeding until he gets to a corner that he doesn't make, and he ends up driving off the edge and lands in a cactus field. How does that hurt him? He's a car made out of metal. A cactus wouldn't hurt him. Nothing would hurt him. He's made out of metal. The only thing that would hurt him is if he got stabbed by a knife or something. It's cactus. It's different material. The car would probably just break all the spikes on the cactus so he wouldn't get hurt at all. Then all the residents at Radiator Springs wake up in the morning to see that most of the road was actually fixed by Lightning. But instead of making a run for it, Lightning starts to try and make the turn. Doc gives him some advice about how to make the turn, but he just thinks it's stupid. Lightning carries on fixing the road as everyone starts to try and make Radiator Springs look better so it fits in with the new road. Sally realizes this and asks Lightning if he wants to stay at her motel.
Hey, do I spy a little pinstriping tattoo back there?
You do realise that to see that tattoo, Lightning must have been staring at her ass. This is a kids' film, not a sex comedy. You cannot do jokes like that. So the next scene is not too bad actually. Lightning and Mater go tractor tipping because in this world, cows are tractors. Now I kind of like this, it was kind of a bit funny. Lightning tips over all the tractors at once and out comes Frank. No, not that Frank, this Frank. But the only problem I have here, the scene's kind of pointless. It isn't referenced to again and it's kind of just here for a joke. Again, I didn't mind it, but I would have liked the scene to have come back later. The next scene is even more pointless, so let's just skip that. So Lightning stumbles across Doc's back room, where he finds 3 piston cups. He realises that Doc is the Hudson Hornet, a famous race car who was after crashing never competed again.
He won 3 piston cups.
He did what in his cup?
Really? Did you just name the cup the piston cup so you could add that joke into it? So Sally asks if he wants to take a drive. This scene, in all honesty, is one of my favourite scenes in any Pixar movie. The next 10 to 15 minutes I absolutely love. For watching the film again, the driving scene was actually one of the only scenes I could remember. The animation is beautiful, the music is pretty good, and the scene just all around works. For a film that is 7 years old, the animation still looks amazing. The landscapes, the water, the trees all look real. It's weird that Pixar's worst film probably has their best animation. Now here's another scene that is probably right up the top with my favourite Pixar moments. It's literally just a montage of how Radiator Springs used to be, where cars are driving around happy, and it's just really popular. It reminds me of the scene in Toy Story 2 about Jesse's owner. I think this scene is what stops me from hating the movie. It just gives me goosebumps and brings a tear to my eye.
Ha! Gay!
Shut up! So then tractors come running through the streets. Lightning follows one where he finds Doc preparing to drive. After driving really well, Lightning follows him where Doc tells him how he was essentially forced out of racing after a big crash. So then in the morning, everyone sees that Lightning has finally finished the road, but he stays in Radiator Springs just so he can help everyone out. This is another scene I love, it just really is quite sweet. And then all of a sudden, along comes the paparazzi who have found Lightning McQueen. Also, along comes his trailer who comes to take him to the big race. Of course, who is it that gave them the call? Well, none other than Doc. So now Lightning's there, he has a repeat of the opening scene, except his mind goes towards the guys at Radiator Springs instead of breakfast. Of course, the final half an hour of the film is pretty predictable. We all know what's going to happen up until the final twist, which I didn't expect, but I'll get to that later. I don't really have many problems for the rest of the film. It isn't as bad as some of the earlier stuff. So all the people from Radiator Springs come back to be Lightning's crew. And then finally, right before Lightning was about to win, Chick Hicks takes out the king. Lightning stops by the finish line and Chick wins. The entire crowd is silent as Lightning pushes the king past the finish line. This scene is another one of my favourite scenes in the film. It is just really touching. More kids films should be like this. You know, all those like films where it's about a competition, whether it's about sports or whatever, where they always win. There's always that scene where they're about to lose but then they win. In this film he just loses, and there should be more films where they lose but they're happy with the fact they lost. They didn't really care. It just basically shows how winning doesn't always matter. I love it. Lightning is then offered by Dinoco to be their new big face, but he says no and sticks with Rusty's, the company that he hated before. Then of course Lightning returns to Radiator Springs where the place has become popular again. Even Michael Schumacher turns up. The film ends with Lightning and Sally racing off and Mater in a helicopter. And that was Cars. Now, it wasn't as bad as I remembered. I definitely enjoyed parts of it, especially the second half of the film, and I had a lot of fun watching it again. Despite the fact that I tried to hate everything in the film kept throwing stuff my way that I just couldn't help but enjoy. No, the film never really made me laugh much, but the rest of it was pretty good. I still feel the premise was stupid, the characters at time are incredibly unlikable, especially Lightning McQueen and Mater, but the animation style, some of the subplots and the ending just completely redeemed the movie. I know what you're thinking. If I liked it, why did I review it? The film is incredibly stupid at times. Not many of my problems have changed with the film, except I enjoyed it more than I did originally. Thanks for watching Hollywood Beatdown segment right in the childhood. I promise I absolutely hate next week's film. In fact, I'd rather be eaten by 4 Christ than watch that shit again.